What's going on, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're talking about when games should introduce monetization, a very tricky topic, into their game itself. Is it the start? Is it the end? Is it somewhere in between? And Chris, who is sponsoring today's video? I know we have a special giveaway and a sponsor in that regard. So tell them about it.
Today's video is sponsored by all the new GIF alerts on stream. So today we've been giving those away. You guys have been making me doing all sorts of goofy things. So hopefully you guys are enjoying. We're uploading those now regularly. Doing lots of new giveaways, lots of new stuff, all sorts of cool things, making stream a great time. And I got a phrase that I got to work into today's video. So
the phrase that pays. I just like how that sounds.
Talk about it at the end.
So it's going to happen at some point in this. We'll let you know what it was. I don't know what it is. He hasn't told me. It pays in humor and joy. All right, so on stream today, just to kind of set some context, so really what happened here, I was playing some Guild Wars and also watching the Swords of Legends Online presentation. And when you came back to the thing, you were like, "How was it?" I go, "It was interesting because instead of showing gameplay or instead of showing like the characters and things like that, they started with 45 minutes showing the shop and the store." Now, I have nothing.
A 2-hour presentation.
I have a 2-hour presentation. They did get to the classes and all that, but it felt so very weird. It just it was definitely a red flag, right? Because you're sitting here saying, okay, like show me a dungeon, show me the gameplay, show me the classes that I can play, show me what is going to keep me hungry, fed. And instead they show you a bill. Like here's the cool stuff that you can buy. And we have and we've always said I don't have a problem with microtransactions. In principle, I think there are ways that it gets executed right, and there's ways that are just overly predatory and just nauseating to witness. And so that's what this is going to be about. Like, when is the right time? What kind of constitutes the appropriate level of monetization so that the games that we love can continue to go forward? What are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts on this one, Chris?
I mean, I think you go to E3 and stuff and it's just cinematic, so they don't even have release dates sometimes. And
right.
So that's the other side, right? Where it's just hype and there's no substance. And so, there's definitely catchphrases versus actual core issues, right? Let's talk policy. Let's talk about what's actually going to hit the ground. And games do have to get paid for. And so, once you tell me enough that I'm interested in playing, start with that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what it costs. You don't go into a restaurant and they're like, dude, this restaurant, I got to tell you about this restaurant. Yeah. So it's kind of expensive. Okay. Well, what kind of serve they food? Well, the food they serve, mostly what you need to know is you're going to have to pay at the door. Okay. But what kind of food is it? Well, they're going to charge you when you get to the table as well. Okay. But what kind of food? Well, it's just know that it's expensive. That's an enormously red flag. Now, I will say the dev team here looked incredibly young.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see people our age or younger get an opportunity like this. That could have been just lack of experience.
Mm-hmm.
That could have just been, this is their first time to be a community manager. This is their first time to be the person being the spokesman on behalf of a dev team. And they're being given the reins of this successful game to go off and do this. And they don't have any formal training in presenting. They don't have any because to be good at being a developer, you don't have to have any formal training. The guy on the left, I believe, was a developer. And so you don't have to have any background in it. But that is just a flaming hot set of red flags.
Yeah, and so they spend that time on the store where, again, if it's just cosmetic, which they continue to iterate that. At the end of the day, what we've seen in monetization, because the conversation we were having on stream ended up going into EA and Activision. There's some really big names of okay, yeah, you want how much for your team in FIFA? There's some things that it's wait a minute, this
That'll
game
expire in a year.
It expires in a year. Activision, Call of Duty is a greed fest.
Which I play Call of Duty.
Right. But you play it at the one cost, and then it's and then you see all that they keep throwing all this stuff in your face. And that's for me where it's interesting. I have a perspective of, as the gamer, I just don't engage with that content. I just don't care. And so I can sit here and say, I'm not going to throw $5 down the drain on Call of Duty because in a year they're going to ask me for that same thing. Here's that same thing you already bought. Do you want to buy it again in this new game? And I'm going to be like, hell no. But then I watched my kids, and they got a phone, and I let them download a game, and they were playing it. It's free, and it keeps saying like, "Hey, can you spend money?" And Maddie's like, "Can I spend some money?" I go, "We're gonna delete that game. I'm gonna go buy a game for $5. It's never going to ask you for money again." And so there's really two interesting entry points for somebody who has and understands the value of what that transaction means. I got no problem with it. You got $10,000. You want to throw $10,000 into that product? That's your choice. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. You want to have my daughter who doesn't know how to make a dollar continue to ask me for that? You're annoying me at this point. Like it's
Right.
the candy aisle right before checkout. Like I know you know what you're doing. You don't put the candy where the kids don't see it. You put it at eye level, so they're going to beg the parents, and if they're having a tired day, they're just going to open up their wallet. And that's how the game's played. But in the case of, let's say, introducing monetization into a game, Final Fantasy XIV is a really good example of this, and I think they've handled it fairly well. Now, everybody's going to disagree on certain aspects. I have problems with the cash shop in 14, but let's talk about it. It wasn't in the game at the start. And and actually one of the theories I've had is that I think monetization for video games, when systems are loved or at least tolerated, it's when there's trust between the player and the developer. And so let's just take an XP potion as an example. There's no XP potions in 14, but let's take that as an example. Let's say you could level from 1 to level 80 in Final Fantasy 14, and you have that experience. And you go, yeah, the grind sometimes might have been a little bit tough, but it's not a problem. 5 years down the road, they say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and add an XP potion. We're not changing the curve. The leveling that you've experienced without it before this existed is the same. And then they introduce that. Maybe it makes it a little faster. Maybe you want to use it on an alt. That's really then up to you. Maybe you can still also purchase it with in-game currency. Well, we've already established the trust that the leveling curve is based off of this design. However, when you have that XP potion at the start, you're going to feel that grind, and you're going to be like thinking the whole time, they're just trying to get me to open up my wallet. And it's a psychological thing, and it just drives me nuts. And so I think whenever like certain things are introduced, that's a good thing. This can go completely south, because when you look at games that when there's like no pay to win and this is only cosmetic, for how long? I don't trust you. I have no relationship with you. How long is that going to go? What are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, so I mean, I appreciate when the monetization is announced up front, because it gives me a chance to decide how I'm going to engage. I know when I download a Call of Duty game that they're going to try to sell me season passes. I know that they're going to have cosmetics for guns. I know that I'm not going to get to carry progress forward in future years. I know that eventually, at this point now, I know that there will be guns that I want to play with that you either have to play 10,000 hours or give them money. And I know that. I will tell you, the first time I played a Call of Duty game that did that, because they did not always do that, I was not happy, and I quit that game for the rest of the year. Now I came back in because Halo Infinite was delayed, and I'm playing that game again. That's what gave them another chance.
Yeah,
is I had another shooter, and it didn't come out.
Yeah.
And so I'm playing it again, but I went in knowing that I was going to be marketed to. Doesn't bother me at all. Any of you that have ever traveled a lot to anywhere that's had an open air market, we don't have that many of them in the US, where there are people that literally come up and are asking you for money constantly. And they're haggling with you, and they're trying to rip you off. And they're selling you the second half of their burrito for $35. And they're just shaking you down. It can make you feel sick to your stomach if you're not conditioned for it. But once you know it's there, and you're going there to find a specific thing and haggle, because it will be your lowest best price, like you go in there, you push past those people, you tell them no thank you, no thank you, and learn whatever the local language is if it's international, and then you go right to that person, you haggle with just them, and then you leave and you got this great deal. It can be this nice experience, but I want to know what it is on the front end. So actually, like, I really didn't like for a long time that Final Fantasy came in and has added stuff that was not there at launch. So I appreciate it being there at launch. I appreciate calling it what it is. Now, a big portion of what Final Fantasy did is they were trying to bring EU Data Center online. So I will say, you should not necessarily be obligated on the front end, right? That's a very 1.0 spaghetti code type thing. You now have to foresee every time you're going to ask for money in the future. That's impossible.
Right.
Well, then if you need to change the value proposition, Do it at a clear breaking point. So in an MMO, do it in an expansion. Do it at a point where there's an off ramp for people that say no. And then for everybody that says yes, make it very clear what it's for and stick to that.
Yeah.
If you support this cash shop, we will build an EU data center. If you don't, that's fine. They added nothing to the cash shop that was required. So there are plenty of people who still have never bought anything on the cash shop to this day. And for all the people that bought Phantasias, which I know there's a bunch of, we now have an EU data center. So like, there was a very clear, if you do this, then you get this. And there was a delivered product, which so it doesn't bother me.
It's an interesting kind of situation, especially how it exists in 14, because 14's also cash shop is so separate from the game. It's not click a button and you're right there. I mean, like you're not like fighting a monster and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, let me buy that die right off the cash shop.
But when you boot up the launcher to log into the game,
I have no scrolling ads. It's still a separate thing. Like and I'm not sitting here advocating that it's right because it's separate. Like I don't mind the 14 cash shop. I don't mind it because I love the game. And it's like when you have the trust and the love and you're not feeling like they're constantly going through your pockets, then it's, yeah, like, okay, if somebody wants that, it's not a requirement. It is something extra, like a server transfer and things like that. Okay, by all means, like if that's what you want, like go ahead. Like, and then, but that's right. That's established right at the front. It's just an interesting thing because then the question shifts, like who does it the best? Like who in your mind delivers a fair price, and whether that's subscription based with cash shop, because there's no subscription based without a cash shop. There's no world right now in 2021 and beyond that you're just going to see a subscription based MMO. The fact that Swords of Legends Online is a sub based MMO in China but is not launching in the West as a sub based speaks a lot to me. It says that there's nothing there that they're going to be able to, like, they feel like they can maintain with the
subs on its way out.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it'll be replaced. Now, subscriptions as a whole won't go away because now we're learning subscriptions to full packages.
Yeah,
subscriptions for the family is the new thing, right?
Right.
The idea that I don't have to get my value. Me and my wife can get my value. Brian and his kids can get the value. The idea that on days that Brian's not using it, his kids still can feels better.
Yeah.
And so things like Netflix, things like Disney Plus are actually growing, but the individual subscription things don't feel as good. And so you're seeing subscriptions to more of that kind of box, that package where you're going to get something for everybody in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think seeing a Square Enix subscription, seeing Final Fantasy tied to something like Game Pass or PlayStation Now, seeing WoW's cover the cost of WoW Classic. If there is going to be a monthly piece to it, I think that is where it's headed. Personally, and I think that's honestly what makes it feel better, that when I want to take a break for a game and I want to support the developers and I want to purchase my subscription 6 months at a time for that discount, they appreciate it because they get the money now. I appreciate it because I know that if during that 6 months I decide to take a break, it's not all or nothing. It's not, if I don't want to play Final Fantasy, I'm wasting money that I prepaid. And so having my subscription cover more things, if Final Fantasy 11 was baked into my 14 subscription, it would feel better even if I literally never downloaded 11.
Right.
It would feel better just knowing
you could.
Right. It's the cable package. Channels you don't watch. It's nice to have them. It's nice to know they're there.
Yeah, I think that's
comfort.
I think that's the model. What we'll end up seeing here at some point, whether it's in the next couple of years or it gets bundled, right? Because it's really up to Square at this point. Did they decide to sit here and bundle in other games? Like they also have another MMO, Dragon Quest X. It's only in Japan, but when we're seeing these games that have only been isolated in certain areas end up actually coming out into the world, like there's a chance that it could definitely find, I think, a footage and an audience here, and then all of a sudden imagine that being, hey, you get 10, 11, 15, 14, 21.
Yeah. No, that's one heck of a deal.
It would be massive. It'd be like, why wouldn't I?
It's a bargain.
Yeah.
That's the question. Is now 14 and WoW may be big enough they don't have to ever change it. They may go the rest of their life cycle and never change it because they've crossed critical mass.
I think Yoshi P says that if WoW does, he will. Because I think there will be a stigma. I think essentially, like there would be a stigma in saying, 14 got rid of.
WoW does what?
That they will. Like Yoshi.
Get rid of subscription.
I think that's what Yoshi P said. Like
but they sell a token and he doesn't.
And he did say that if it was successful,
they included Classic and he didn't include 11.
All right,
I understand why they don't include Avengers and Kingdom Hearts and things they don't have all the IP to, but they own 11. So like, if
fair,
you
fair point. But there could be a lot of things on the back end, you know, in that regards. But it'll be interesting to see, like, in that regards, that like over the course of time, as we see this evolve. Having played Guild Wars, like having been really enjoying that, I find the model in and of itself fascinating. Now, I'm a player coming into the game in 2021. There's already been 2 expansions. There's, in my view, lots of content, lots of stuff to do. As a veteran player who's like, I can't, like, we don't get updates on the regular. We don't get expansions on like any kind of cadence. Like, it could probably feel like, yeah, you've done everything. What, like, you want more to do in the game. So that there's a definitely benefit in having that consistent flow of cash into the game itself from predictability cycle. You can afford to pay your devs because you can see that kind of runway. But I do appreciate the fact that it doesn't have a subscription and that there is essentially a way that you can play the game, you can turn it into a premium currency and versus. And you see that same model somewhat in 14, only the thing that does not happen is you cannot take in-game currency and turn it into Krista. There's Krista. It looks like it was designed to be the premium currency to be used in a cash shop and to use all these things. But the history of 1.0, I think what you end up seeing, the reason why we don't have that connection is because of how they had to repair 14. And it didn't make sense to sit here and say, we're going to have to repair this game. And oh, by the way, we want more of your money. You know, and it's like that's how I see it, but and maybe I might be misquoting on USCP talking about WoW, but so, I feel like there is kind of a blink first in that regards between I would say the last 2 subscription based MMOs. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think the answer to the original premise, right? When is the appropriate time to talk money?
Yeah,
is after you've sold us the game. So don't open with money.
Right.
It's a game we've never played, but it didn't feel good. And I'm not saying that it's still not worth playing. I'm not saying it's not worth taking a look at this summer, but I am saying that's a bad first step, which that's fine. People have bad first impressions all the time.
Right.
You know, I have multiple friends who, when they tell the story of how they met their spouse, it's a laughable story of a terrible first impression. It's not the death of a relationship, but that is a bad first impression. So it's something after a good first impression, something after the first date. They know something about you that's a good thing before you start asking for freaking money. So, like, that's something after that. But something before, there's no point of no return. Something before you're now in the game and you're like, okay, we've made it through our adventure. I've got the key to the dungeon. I've got my sword. I've got my potion. I'm ready. $1.99.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't feel good at all.
Right.
And so at a certain point, it is bad news. Nobody likes talking about money. It's got to be before I'm invested into the actual gameplay. So I think the appropriate time is sell me the game. Give me the cinematic. Give me what the gameplay loop is. Then tell me what it costs in its entirety over the course of its life. Here's our plan. Initial content offering. Here's what expansions will be. There will be seasonal content. There will be cosmetic DLCs. They will be pay to win. They won't be pay to win. There will be loot boxes or surprise loot mechanics or whatever, or there won't be. Then let me start playing. So I think it's that middle step that's appropriate. It is bad news, but I already like you, right? I'm already on your team, but I'm not to the point where I feel like you drove me out into the desert and there's one place to get gas and you just now told me you didn't bring your wallet. Like, that's fine. I'll pay.
It's
I'm not
true.
Gonna be
it's
happy
true.
About it.
It's true. It's so true.
I'm not going to be happy about it.
I say, sell me on the gameplay. Like, tell me about, like you said with your restaurant analogy, like, it's got the best steak. You have to try the dessert. Like, this is going to be the best meal you've ever had. It's on the pricey side. It's a weird structure. Like, they're gonna charge you right when you sit down, and then they're not gonna let you order. They're just gonna bring it to you. But trust them, it's worth it. That's the sell. This was reverse. It was completely reverse in that regards. And it's like, come on. I don't care. Like, especially as somebody who does not spend money on microtransactions. Like, no, I'm good.
I'm
like,
glad
whatever.
I took a break.
Yeah, it was definitely a good show.
I took a break after stream. I think if I'd listened to that, it probably would have put a bad enough taste in my mouth. I wouldn't try it. And instead, because I'm getting it from you, you actually were able to tell me some things and, like, actually somewhere in there, like, okay, well, you were able to save them, right? You were able to. And
I'm not trying. I owe them nothing. I was like, I've pre-ordered because I was like, all right, let me check this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, guys, as always, let us know what you think about this monetization. When it's acceptable, is there a timing? Is there because in my mind, I still think, to summarize it, it has to get paid for. I always find it that it's a little bit better to be introduced, later. It's the kind of the end of the meal. You've already played the game. You already like, yeah, this is great. And then they're like, hey guys, we're going to go ahead and introduce this later. Chris feels like at least be open and honest, because they could say that. Like, we're not going to have the store turned on. It's only cosmetic. We'll show it to you, but you're not going to be able to have access to any of this stuff until the first couple of months are out. We want you to try it. We want you to have fun. We want you to get some stuff from the game, and then we'll start adding different things. Like, that's how I think the model works. But anyway, let us know what you think. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button. Do all the buttons, each and every one. Love you guys. For Work to Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris, and thank you so much for making me say flaming hot.
Flaming hot. That's the term.
Flaming hot.
Thanks very much, guys. Good term. Can't wait to see what other things he has to put into it. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. My name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks for watching again. And I kept saying that. Either way, it is what it is. Peace out. Love you guys. See you soon. Bye.